August 29th, 1996. A date that would be etched into the annals of aviation history. Brazil, a day like any other, bustling with life and activity, unaware of the storm brewing in the skies above. Vasp Flight 375, a Boeing 737, sliced through the clouds. Its destination, Sao Paulo. The passengers settled in for what they thought would be a routine flight. On board 40 souls, each with their own stories and dreams, unaware of the terror soon to unfold. Among them, a man harboring a dark secret, his demeanor calm but his mind racing. His name, Raimundo Nonato Alves, a troubled soul with a plan that had been festering in his mind for weeks, if not months. A plan fueled by desperation, a last-ditch effort to reclaim control over his chaotic life. As the plane cruised at 32,000 feet, Alves made his move. The serene atmosphere inside the cabin was about to be shattered. He lunged from his seat, a .38 caliber revolver gripped in his hand. The cold metal a stark contrast to the warm, pressurized cabin air. Panic rippled through the cabin like a shockwave, the once calm passengers now gripped by fear. Passengers gasped, their eyes wide with fear, their minds struggling to comprehend the unfolding nightmare. The idyllic journey had transformed into a nightmare. The cabin's atmosphere now thick with tension and dread. Alves, his voice trembling, announced the hijacking, his words echoing the chilling reality. The gravity of the situation sinking in for everyone on board. The flight's trajectory had shifted, the plane now veering off its intended course. Now it was in the hands of a desperate man, his fate intertwined with those of the 40 passengers and crew. Raimundo Nonato Alves, a 40-year-old street vendor, was no hardened criminal. He was an ordinary man trying to make ends meet in a world that seemed to have turned its back on him. He was a man driven to the edge by life's relentless blows. Each day was a struggle, each moment a reminder of his failures and the dreams that had slipped through his fingers. Recently fired from his job, evicted from his home, Alves saw hijacking as his only escape. The weight of his circumstances bore down on him, leaving him with a sense of hopelessness that clouded his judgment. His goal was not to harm, but to bargain. He believed that by taking such a drastic step, he could draw attention to his plight and find a way out of his dire situation. He had a message, a plea for help, for the Brazilian president himself. Alves hoped that by reaching out directly to the highest authority, he could secure the assistance he so desperately needed. Alves demanded the plane change course. His plan was audacious and he knew the risks involved, but he felt he had no other choice. He wanted to circle above Brasilia, the nation's capital. His message scrawled on banners trailing the aircraft. It was a bold move intended to capture the attention of the entire nation. It was a desperate gamble, a cry for attention from a man who felt invisible. Alves believed that this dramatic act would force people to see him, to hear his story, and to understand his desperation. He believed this act, as dangerous as it was, held the key to his redemption. In his mind, it was a chance to reclaim his dignity and find a way to rebuild his shattered life. But the price of his desperation would be paid by the innocent souls on board Flight 375. The passengers, unaware of Alves' plight, found themselves caught in the middle of his desperate bid for attention. Fear choked the air inside the hijacked plane. Passengers huddled together, whispering desperate prayers. Mothers clutched their children tightly, their faces etched with worry. Every engine hum, every rustle of movement amplified the growing tension. Time warped, stretching out each agonizing second endlessly. Alves, though armed, seemed more lost than menacing. His eyes darted around, reflecting his own deep terror. His demands, rambling and incoherent, only deepened the unsettling mystery of his motives. The passengers, trapped in this high-altitude nightmare, clung to fragile hope that somehow this terrifying ordeal would end without bloodshed. In the cockpit, Captain Fernando Muro and his co-pilot faced an unimaginable crisis. Maintaining their composure, they calmly relayed the situation to air traffic control. They knew that the lives of everyone on board depended on their actions. Their priority was to de-escalate, to buy time. They engaged Alves in conversation, trying to understand his motives, to find a chink in his armor of desperation. Their calm demeanor and strategic communication became a beacon of hope in the darkness. Unbeknownst to Alves, they were also the linchpin of a daring rescue plan being hatched by authorities on the ground. Section 5, A Mother's Plea, Human Connection Amidst Chaos. Among the passengers was a woman named Rosalie de Souza, a mother traveling with her young son. She refused to surrender to fear. Seeing Alves' vulnerability, she did something extraordinary. She reached out to him, not as a hijacker, but as a fellow human being. She spoke to him of her own struggles, of the challenges of raising a child in a country riddled with inequality. Her words, laced with empathy, seemed to pierce through Alves' despair. He allowed her to approach the cockpit and speak with the captain, a small victory in the face of terror. Rosalie's courage became a symbol of hope, proving that even in the darkest moments, human connection could prevail. Section 6. Landing in limbo. The tense negotiations begin. After hours of tense negotiations, Alves agreed to land the plane in Goiânia, a city about 200 kilometers from Brasília. The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the tarmac as the plane touched down. The hijacking had entered a new phase, a delicate dance of demands and concessions. Brazilian authorities surrounded the aircraft. A tense silence blanketed the scene, punctuated only by the whirring of the plane's engines. A negotiator established contact with Alves, carefully feeling for any crack in his resolve. Every word, every breath, held the weight of the lives hanging in the balance. Section 7, shots fired, lives on the line, a desperate turn. As negotiations stretched into the night, Alves' demeanor grew increasingly erratic. The hope that had flickered briefly seemed to be fading. Then the unthinkable happened. 2 gunshots rang out, piercing the stillness of the night. Terror flooded back, gripping the hearts of everyone within earshot. Panic seized the passengers inside. Screams filled the cabin. The authorities, fearing the worst, prepared to storm the plane. But amidst the chaos, a glimmer of hope emerged. The shots had not been aimed at the passengers. Alves, in a final act of desperation, had taken his own life. Section 8. Freedom at last, the passengers' release. With Alves gone, the nightmare finally ended. The passengers and crew, emotionally drained but physically unharmed, were swiftly evacuated from the aircraft. As they stepped onto solid ground, a wave of relief washed over them. They were safe but forever marked by the ordeal. The tarmac, once a scene of terror, transformed into a space of tearful reunions. Families embraced, their sobs a mixture of relief and gratitude. The hijacking had tested their spirits, but it had also revealed the extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. They had stared into the abyss and emerged, shaken but unbroken. Section 9. The hijacker's fate, a tragic end to a desperate act. Raimundo Nonato Alves' desperate gamble had ended in tragedy. His cry for help, muffled by the fear and chaos he had unleashed, remained largely unheard. His death, a stark reminder of the desperation that can grip a soul pushed to the brink. His story, a cautionary tale of the human cost of societal neglect. In the aftermath, questions lingered. Could more have been done to help Alves before he resorted to such drastic measures? Could the tragedy have been prevented? The hijacking of Flight 375 served as a harsh indictment of the social inequalities plaguing Brazil. It forced the nation to confront the desperation simmering beneath the surface. Section 10, Scars of Fear, the lasting impact of Flight 375. The hijacking of Vasp Flight 375 sent shockwaves through Brazil and beyond. It was a day that would forever be etched in the memories of those who lived through it and those who heard about it. The incident not only disrupted the lives of the passengers and crew, but also had a profound impact on the aviation industry as a whole. It exposed vulnerabilities in aviation security, prompting a global review of safety protocols. Governments and airlines around the world were forced to re-evaluate their security measures, leading to stricter regulations and more rigorous screening processes. The hijacking served as a wake-up call, highlighting the need for constant vigilance and the importance of staying ahead of potential threats. The incident highlighted the need for increased vigilance, better passenger screening, and improved communication between airlines and authorities. It became clear that a coordinated effort was essential to ensure the safety of air travel. New technologies were developed, and training programs were implemented to better prepare airline staff and security personnel for potential threats. The scars of that day, however, ran deeper than policy changes. The emotional and psychological impact on the passengers and crew was profound. Many of them struggled with feelings of fear and anxiety long after the incident was over. For those on board Flight 375, the trauma lingered. Support groups and counseling services were established to help them cope with the aftermath. The sense of vulnerability and loss of control they experienced left a lasting mark on their lives. The invisible scars of fear, the lingering anxiety of enclosed spaces, the nightmares that transported them back to those harrowing hours. These psychological wounds were not easily healed, and many continued to struggle with the memories of that fateful day. Their lives were forever bifurcated, the before and the after of the hijacking. The incident became a defining moment, a point of reference that divided their lives into two distinct periods. The sense of normalcy they once knew was shattered, replaced by a new reality shaped by the trauma they endured. The incident served as a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the ever-present potential for chaos to erupt from the mundane. It underscored the importance of resilience and the need to find ways to move forward despite the challenges. The legacy of Flight 375 is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the enduring impact of a single event on countless lives.